Okay, so it seems we have to meet today once again here in Betty's Bay, which is kind of like a coastal town close to Cape Town, close to where Natasha and I live. Why did we have to meet again this time?
Because you didn't meet the last time. You
Yes.
didn't do what you needed to do.
Yeah, can you talk about that?
You two started last night, but you weren't so successful.
Yeah, so we were trying to do the manifestation with the elements, as explained in the last session. What went wrong this time?
You guys didn't do it properly. You didn't understand what you needed to do.
Yes, can you explain to us? So we were bringing in, or just to explain what we were doing all four elements, calling in all four elements. She was doing two, I was doing two, and we were trying to get the water to move, which wasn't moving. What were we doing wrong?
You did not isolate that object.
Can you tell us about that?
Everything is water. Everything has got energy bases to it. You two were trying to move the water, but you're not being specific in what water. You both have been looking at this glass, but you did not isolate that frequency base inside the glass. It is a concept that is quite simple, but very hard to digest in this now realm, as we can say, as this is forgotten knowledge. It is to isolate that, to not make, to not take any notice to anything else in the room, any kind of feeling, any other energy. It's only supposed to be you and that one thing. You're supposed to isolate the water even from the glass itself. Only the water. Once you connect to that water base and you connect with it, then you give it a commandment. And therefore you can start moving it. But this is not as easy at this time. The energy is still not right on the planet to get it right. But you two need to start practicing so that you can start to bring it in.
But what do you mean isolating the water? What does that mean?
Isolating the energy form. So if this was now the water and the glass was on the outside, you will have to only picture and only feel the energy of the water itself, every single particle of that water in that area, and then command it. You cannot look at the whole glass because you are then trying to command the glass as well. This is why it did not work.
Okay, but it seems like we were focusing on the water itself. It was my intention. I'm not sure what Natasha's was, but it wasn't that successful.
Natasha's intentions are all over the place. She doesn't know how to isolate things completely. This was the problem. She's still learning. She's connected to a lot of things, but she needs to start self-isolating these things from each other. But she doesn't see or feel them yet. This is why you two must practice.
Yeah, so how should we do it differently next time? Could you just give us the step by step?
You need to describe it to her. You need to let her visualize it. She's not thinking of it. She's thinking of multiple things at the same time, which means she's throwing energy out at different places. She could then be talking to any glass of water anywhere. This is the problem. This is why we need her to start practicing on objects alone. But she does not believe that she can do it by herself, which is what she's starting to learn, that she can start doing things. However, it is for someone to describe it to her. She's right when she says she does not see what others see. She does not see it in that form and shape, which is to do with her purpose. However, she needs to create the visualization. But she does not visualize it because she is not taking the time to see. She's trying to manipulate it with emotion, but not with trying to feel the energy. Energy and emotion is slightly different of how you set the intent. It is that intent before the emotion hits. It is that complete commandment that gets laced on it before emotion gets involved. Emotion just sets out the frequency at what it vibrates at. The intention needs to be clear in order for the emotion to carry that frequency.
Okay, and why is it important for Natasha or for us to be practicing this kind of thing?
Because this is what you will teach. Once you can start manipulating the elements, you can start manifesting a reality into the way that it should be. Thus, you can start bringing things forward. Thus, you can bring hope back to the people. The people need to remember they are their own saviors. They need to stop looking for outside help and know that it's on the inside. This has become the problem on the planet.
Yes, it does seem like a problem.
Once one can manipulate water, one would not need to go to this, as we would say, jobs and get this thing as money and live in this system where everyone is depressed and angry. Thus is what the theme is now on the planet. The collective is angry because they know deep down in their souls this is not where they should be. They should not be like this. The fifth dimension is here. Many have stepped into it, but none are actually working with it. And thus is the problem. Thus is why you and Natasha are here to bring that in. You will teach others how to do it. It is a very simple way to do it, but because they do not understand how to work with their own native frequency, they cannot do it. You too will, as we would say, crack this code, receive the puzzle piece, but it will not come easy. You too must practice.
Yeah, so should we be practicing individually?
Yes, and together.
Because we can't always be together.
No, you cannot, but there are other means and other forms of communication. You two could work over technology together. There is nothing stopping you from communicating.
Yes.
It is just you two do not have the time.
Yes, okay. But I suppose we could make time because if, like, I always think about if we can manipulate money, like on numbers in a bank account, then we can do anything. Then, like you said, we don't have to go to these jobs. We can actually focus on what we want to do.
You and Natasha have a powerful base together. Both of your energies together are quite strong. So what you two could do is you could literally manifest what is going to come next. You can manifest outcomes where you would get these numbers in your bank account without actually making pure effort. You two need to actually just start living in the information that you are receiving. And thus others will see. Lead by example.
Yes, exactly. But is there anything to do with these the elements we were looking at last night?
In what way would you like this information? There is a lot I could say on this.
Well, I suppose, for instance, in Wiccan they work with 4 elements. There's 4 people who they call on the watchtowers of certain of whichever wind point, and in that way they can manifest. This is something to do with manifestation as well, or are 2 enough?
Yes, there are multiple ways that you could do it. Group consciousness does make it stronger. However, you two have individual strong energies. You two do not have the same energy bases as what we would say the normal people on the planet. There are different collectives, there are different energy sources. There are different dimensional spaces that are streaming in. So each one only connects to their dimensional space. Let us say if someone is streaming in from the sixth dimension, they can only perceive things from the sixth dimension and under. They cannot perceive the seventh and the eighth, therefore they do not know that information. It is not real to them or it does not apply to them. There are different people on the planet stemming from different frequency bases. This is what the planet does not understand. So the way one would do something is not the way the other would. The way a sixth dimensional being would do it and a way a fifth dimensional being would do it is completely different. Thus is why it is important for everybody to work back in their native frequency. When you work from the native frequency in the heart, then you can manipulate and change anything. It is to say that all these points, these energetical points that you speak of, is inside each individual. Yes, one could do it alone. However, it is going to first take practice. That's why you practice with multiple. 2 of you could definitely get it right if the mindset is there and the heart's in the right place. It's all about what frequency is the heart sending out in that moment. Your thoughts could be whatever you'd like it to be. This would not affect anything. It's about the heart. It is like last night when you two were manipulating. Your thought was there, the passion was there, but the hearts weren't exactly on the right frequency. Your hearts weren't on the same frequency base. This is why you did not manipulate it. There was a moment where you two did connect. This is what you guys called the drop. This did happen. This did move. This did spark. You guys should have just carried on with doing that the whole time to sink into that frequency. But this was a learning curve.
Yes, but I'm not clear exactly. So you're saying we need to focus on the actual water itself?
On the energetical body of the water.
Yes.
Thus is as we would say, if you are in a bathtub and you're sitting in the hot water, you could feel the hot water around the body. You can feel where the body is sticking out and where the body is not, correct?
Yes.
So this is you feeling the hot water, the body of the water. If you had to close your eyes, you would feel the whole bathtub. And that is what it is about. It is to feel all that water in that glass, not to just focus on one point or the middle of it, and not just to try and swirl it around. It is to try and actually connect with that as it was a being. This is the best way we can describe it, as if it was a living being. You want to connect with that one. You speak to it. You isolate it out. It is as if to see the whole shape and outline of it and then to connect to it and see it as one thing and then talk to it. But this is still a hard concept to grab, as we are not used to giving information of energetical things to be individual. Many do not grasp these concepts, and this is what makes it difficult because your mind tells you that it cannot be so because you were taught
Yes.
otherwise. But you two will get it right. You have started very well. This is what we wanted. We just wanted you to start.
Okay, but you're saying we need to feel like the water. So is it physically feeling with your tactile senses, or is it visualizing with the third eye? Is it
It is to
hearing?
physically feel it in your heart. The thing is, each thing has its own frequency. If you sit still quiet enough and you do not listen to the outside and you focus on the inside, you will start to feel the objects and where they are. It is as if to sit down and go, okay, I am going to feel for my cell phone. Where is my cell phone? And you can feel, oh, it is on the couch. This is the same. You need to sit and you need to feel that body of water, that energy, that you only feel that presence in that energy, and then you communicate with it.
So you're saying that your frequency then becomes one almost with the frequency of the object, and that is how manifestation occurs.
Yes, everything is vibrating at the native frequency. So if you go back to your native frequency and then you are looking for something specific, it is easier to find it.
Okay, to connect with that
Yes.
object's native frequency, and then
Yes,
there's a
because
resonance.
then that object knows that you are talking to it. When you set out commandments or intents, you are not just talking to the energy in that area like what you two were yesterday with the water. You are talking to every single energy on every dimensional space that's passing past that area. That is how powerful it is. That is why it's important to know how to isolate it. When you two were projecting things in there, you were moving things through different dimensions. This did not cause harm. However, it must be controlled in future.
Yes, because that's why we heard the ocean kind of rising and then the wind was coming in.
Yes, many things were happening because many changes were being created. We did block off a lot from sending out into other dimensional spaces, but on that one spot we could not, as this is what the lesson was about.
Yes. Okay. Is there anything else about manifestation with elements?
Just to keep doing it. You and Natasha have quite a strong sense of things. However, you two need to be slightly more confident in what you are doing. You need to go and work a lot more with each element. This is what you two must do. You two must go and you must feel them. Therefore, you guys must actually switch them around. It's to be with the elements that you are not comfortable with, because once you master those ones will be the ones that you could use as tools.
Yes. Okay, so it seemed like she was more comfortable with the water and the wind, and I was more comfortable with the other two.
Yes.
Why is that?
This is just because it's closer to both of your native frequencies. It's in your comfort space. Natasha does not like the fire. She is quite terrified of it in a way. She is scared that it could be destructive and that it could hurt others. However, this is a perspective if she would want to go into that. But she's starting to learn that she does not need to create these labels as we all tell her. She can start bringing it back and know that she could use it for good things.
Okay. Okay, can you maybe talk about the dimensions and where we are dimensionally?
It's complicated, but we are going to explain it in the best way that we can. There are multiple frequencies happening on this planet, so many are still in, as we would call, the limbo of the fourth dimensional space, because they are not creating change to go into the fifth. They are trying to hold on to a three-dimensional space, but yet enhance it, which is what is incorrect at this time. Many have already jumped to the fifth, but they do not even know that they are in the fifth. Their instant manifestations are starting to happen. Their lives are starting to become chaotic because they do not know what they are doing. This is why it's important for them to go back to the native frequency and to feel, and then they will be guided through it. This is what it is about. It is to stop trying to go outside. Many want to go on to outside levels of themselves, but the whole key is that everything is becoming in this inside level at this now moment. Everything is pulling together to create the moment. What are you doing? Are you paying attention to the surroundings or not? If they paid attention enough, they would notice that this is a completely different dimensional space. Many are already in the fifth, but they are not using it correctly. Thus, it's becoming a problem. This is why they are angry. This is why they are upset. Their energy inside the body is upset because it knows it's in the fifth dimension, but the host is still trying to live by the third.
Yes. It's like it's still staring forlornly at the door that's closing of the third dimension instead of looking at the new door and walking through it.
Exactly. But it is they're already in the door, but they are closing their eyes and sitting in the room and saying, we are still stuck. This is the problem. They do not believe in themselves as much. They are looking for outside belief. But we understand why they have this, as they have been conditioned to feel like this. This is why we have come to help.
Yes. So can you maybe tell people who might be struggling right now, who are in the 5D, who are still using the tools of the third dimension, which tools of the fifth dimension should they be using?
The thing is, that is why it is very important for us to keep going back to the heart. Many understand this concept and they do not grasp it to the full potential. The thing is, everything that you know, everything that you think you know, you must forget now. Yes, these rules and these methods were used in the dimensional space and time when it was needed. It did work and it did help a lot. However, as we enter in this brand new energy, there are new methods, new tools, new rules. But you cannot unlock any of them if you do not unlock the heart. The heart is the one that's sending out the frequency that's creating the reality. As we would give example, let us say today, you and Natasha would go somewhere to go have lunch. What you both stream out is the perception that you're going to get back. If you are going to feel that it is a good day, it is very nice, and everything is going well, you would walk in there and everybody would smile at you, everybody would be nice. If Natasha had to go in there with you and she would think everything is going bad, everybody would be smiling at you and then she would see everybody frown at her. She would literally see everything that she projects out. This is how it works. There are base frequencies, which means it's things that everybody will see, tangible frequency basis. Then what you project out through the heart is what's going to project back to you. How you feel about yourself is how you feel about your reality. If you do not feel nice about the reality around you, it is because something inside of you does not feel nice. You are denying a part of yourself or not acknowledging something. There's different reasons. The only one who could tell you is yourself. This is why we say, go talk to yourself. Many are too scared to talk to themselves in the mirror because they think that they are lying. Thus is what the problem is. It comes down to the trust. But many don't even know what this trust is. Many think they know what trust should be, but this is not it. It is to trust yourself fully and say, I designed my reality. I have a higher self, a higher me. So why would my higher me let me go through this experience? This is why we say if something goes wrong, it is to sit back and go, what is this trying to teach me? Because obviously I've put myself in this situation for a reason. And then you could see, oh, it's because I was obsessing about something and I manifested it, and this is why I'm here. It does not mean that the higher dimensions said you need to learn that lesson, as you are creating for yourself what you feel in your heart. You are the only one who is judging yourself. And that judgment is what the universe hears. So if you judge yourself in an unloving way, the universe is going to give you that back because you are asking for more things to show you so you could love yourself. Does this make sense?
Yes, it does make sense, the law of mirroring, the law of attraction, right? But if it was so easy to love ourselves, we would just do it and be in 5D, right? So why are we struggling so much?
The struggle is because since you all were children, the school-based frequencies that you guys have gone through has been giving you false information. And so you have mistrust with the dimensional space around you. And this is echoing out in everything. And many don't know this because the frequencies of the body tries to keep this away from the emotions because it is quite traumatic. As we would use an example, let us take the tooth fairy. This is something that a lot of different places on this planet tell their children. They tell their children that there is either a mouse or this little fairy that comes to collect the teeth and gives them money. The children truly believe this with every fiber in their being. They get so excited. Some children want to fall on purpose and knock their teeth out just to see this fairy. This is true. Then, when they become older and they realize that this is not true, they start to question everything. How the way that I feel, the way that I think. Then the inner child starts to question everything it was taught. The brain is wired like that. So the brain sees one dysfunction and then starts to categorize everything else. Then you start thinking religion, the way I think and perceive how my family feels about me. All these things start to feel like a lie. And therefore you feel like everything is lying to you and you cannot trust the world. And when you lose that trust, you lose trust within yourself. So this is not something that comes out of a now moment. This is something that you are born with. You are born into this. Everyone is. And that is what it is about, to go back and say, why? Why do I not trust myself? And it's maybe because you are following lessons and information that you were taught at a young age that you believe now, but you never believed as a child, but you forced yourself to believe it, and therefore you have a trust issue within yourself. Just by having that conversation, you immediately heal and repair it because you understand it. This is why it does not get healed, because it's not being brought to the surface, because it's not in your now mind, and because you can't grasp it. But once you actually start to listen to yourself and you hear it, then you let it go because you know where it's coming from, and therefore it cannot bug you anymore. It is just to give it a space to go to and not hold it.
Yes, it seems that people that come and see me, they also don't trust their internal channel. They only trust external channels that they kind of see on YouTube, and they feel like they've made it all up. And even though I feel the sessions are very successful, they feel like they've made up the the visuals and the story. And
yes, Natasha feels this all the time. She sometimes still feels that even now. She thinks to herself, is this just me? Do I want to say this? But then when she goes back and she listens to herself saying this, she gets such a warm joy in her heart. And she knows that that's not for selfish gain. That information is there to help others. You would notice. That's how we like to say it. You notice and you know when your heart is not in the right place. That is why you need to justify it to yourself. It is not going to be easy at first. Some are going to talk a lot of nonsense. Some still are. But that is why it is for you to learn yourself and to say, well, I don't trust that thought because I would not think of that. So I'm not going to be a part of it. But thank you. And moving on. And by so setting yourself in such a strong force of knowing who you are, then nothing could shake you externally. Therefore, when you channel something in, if you don't even believe it, then you know it is not from you. But if you feel it deep in your soul, then you know it is yours. Then why should you question?
Yes. Okay, is there anything else about trust?
There's a lot that we could say on this. The thing is, this is what is the planet's problem. This is the trust in oneself. This was lost so many years ago and has been passed down throughout the bloodlines. The trust in oneself has created these blocks. This is what is making it difficult. This is why it's hard for people to love themselves. It's hard for them to actually acknowledge that the reason why they are where they are today is purely because themselves. Many would like to blame circumstances. Yes, some circumstances are tough. We do know this. But this is what you chose to grow to be the being that you are today. It is like Natasha. Natasha went through multiple things in her lifetime. She sometimes jokes and says if she could write a book, she would be the bestseller. As many would not even believe that these stories has happened to her. It is now like this theme of the sexual trauma that holds inside the body. Natasha went through a very rough patch in her life. Natasha was, as she would want to say, not a victim, but she was a part of a role that she did not want to be in. But thus she had to go through sexual trauma in order to know today how to heal it, how to work with it, and how to stand strong in herself. She did not go through that for a personal lesson. She went into that for a collective lesson. Because she went through that, she could sit today and talk to many and help those who went through that trauma because she understands it. Natasha had many years of sexual abuse. That is something her family didn't even know of at the time. So she really did not understand or even trust anything. And she was holding on to a lot of things in the womb. This is why it started to manifest out into different, as we would say, parts in her womb that started to create cystic fibroids. They started to explode and expand. She had to get them surgically removed.
Why did that happen? What was the metaphor there?
This is because she was blaming herself. She was holding on to it, and she said that this sexual trauma happened to her because she chose it. Yes, she did choose it from a higher collective, but she blamed herself because she was a child. If she just knew better, if someone maybe told her. The thing is, she cannot think like this. She had to go and see, why is the world ugly? Many people on this planet have gotten sexual trauma. Maybe all. This is what others don't know. People think that they are the only ones that are going through this trauma. This is why the planet is where it is. This is why there are problems here. Because everybody thinks they are the only one. But everybody went through this as a collective in order to understand it now so they could heal it together. When you truly heal yourself, then you heal the world. That is how powerful that light shines out. It's as for when Natasha sat and she went through this and she said to herself, okay, yes, this did happen to me. That was 4 years of her life. That changed her completely. This changed her perception of love and what she needed in life. And it caused such deep emotional trauma that it caused her major depression. But when she sat and thought about it and really thought about it, she realized that it is not her to blame, and it's not even to blame the man who did that to her. He was just a hurt child which had this happen to him. It is keep on echoing out. It's a frequency with a frequency with a frequency. And it is going to keep bouncing into one's reality until one deals with it. This is why it passes down the generations. It passes down so that it can get acknowledged. It is like the shadow self. It must not get chased away. It must be acknowledged. When she finally acknowledged this, and she forgave him in the sense of he did not do this to her because he individually chose her out and decided he wanted to ruin her life. That was the only form of love that he knew. He thought that was the only form of love that there was. And for her to make peace in her heart and say she knows now that that was not love, so she will not do that to another, there she breaks the cycle. She broke the chain for everybody who was going through that in that bloodline. That is what it is about. It is that acknowledgement. We have to see the ugly to really know why everyone is hurting. We cannot expect this planet to heal if we don't go and look at the wounds. We have to see what damage has been done, but to look at each other and say that is okay. It is okay to have had that thought. Many blame themselves for having these deep sexual thoughts. Many do get that, and it is okay. It is a chemical reaction that they do not understand in the moment. It is all learning. We learn through them and they learn through us. We are all dimensions that are mixing together and learning at the same time. It's quantum. Earth is not a school as everyone thinks. There are levels of schools here, yes. There are multiple dimensional spaces. Each chakra from the body stems from a different dimensional space. Each dimensional space pulls onto this planet. This is why there are people that stem from different places. People have different chakras which are more stronger than the others. This is your key. This is where you make your rainbow body, depending on which one is your strongest.
How do you know which one is your strongest? Or which, yes.
This is to do with when you were born, your cycle, your element. This is also to do with where you feel. As we would say, yours is quite a rooted one. You are very strong in your root, but also your sacral is very strong. You are very much in your power, which is good. Yes, you lose it from time to time, but all of you do, because it's not strong enough for the planet for you to hold it permanently. This would send out ripples, which could be quite dangerous. That is why everybody needs to learn to balance. Natasha's root is also quite strong. As we would say, her root is the strongest one of all of hers. However, she needs to try and balance it in to use the energy of that root to come into the others and balance them, almost to fill them. One is stronger, but it must not beam out more. It must come in and charge the others. But this is still a difficult concept to explain, as many will not understand this until they have fully unlocked the heart. We could give all the advice, we could give all the tools, we could even give all the answers. But if one's heart is not open, those tools will not work, and one would be disappointed, and one would say this does not work, one would not believe in oneself, and therefore one would create a block. Does this make sense of why the heart is important?
Yes, it just seems like quite an abstract concept to people to say to them to open the heart. Is there anything more about that, how to do it step by step?
It is what we would like to ask the people. Tell us, explain to us, as we could explain from multiple perspectives. But what part of it do you not understand? They must send in these questions. They must say, honestly, what is their problem of their concept? Because many need to alter just a slight perception. Many don't even understand the perception. But we cannot help with this information if we do not know, because from our perspective, it just is. We just know it. But we do not see it from your perspective. We can understand your perspective. But half of these things on this planet do not make sense to us.
Okay. Maybe use an example. Use Natasha as an example. How did she open her heart?
How she opened her heart was she became one with herself. Now, how we would explain this is when she was going through her time to get to know to who she is and to fully trust herself, she needed to be very content in knowing that she is her God, she is her creator. Many do not want to even acknowledge that they are that powerful, and we are not saying to walk around with ego base and think you are better. But she had to tell herself she is a goddess. She is her queen. She is the only God that she should pray to because she is an extension of that God, of that source. So if you do not believe that you are an extension of source and you are that spark, how can you carry the energy? This is how she opened her heart. She knew that when she is in this, as we would call it, a goddess mode, she is loving. Because what is it to be source? What is it to truly love yourself? If you truly love yourself, you would only do things in your best interest and not from a selfish perspective. Let us say, for example, if Natasha would go out, she stopped drinking. There was not a reason to say that she had to stop drinking, even though the vessel did take a lot of damage. The vessel needed to heal. But she knew this. She loved herself enough to say that my vessel deserves better, so I'm going to stop drinking. So that is less stress off the vessel. She can still do other things that might not be good for the vessel, but the vessel can handle it better. Instead of having 20 things go wrong, she could only pick 3 or 4 that the vessel could still work with. This is what it's love. Let us say, for example, now, if you are tired today, are you going to go and push yourself to the brim, overwork yourself, and then get angry because you do not have time for yourself? Or are you going to go lie down, feel the sun on your face, and just breathe and give your body a moment to relax? If your feet are sore, are you going to complain about it, or are you actually going to pick up something and push it into the feet like a cream or an oil and actually spend time on yourself? That is how Natasha opened her heart. She actually started to massage her hands and her feet and talk to her vessel. That is how she opened her heart, because she understood that she is an extension of this vessel. She must love and respect these hands so that everything they carry and do for her is going to give back. And that is how she opened that frequency for the heart, because that connection to the vessel is what started streaming out into her reality. And therefore, she could start to feel that energy from the heart base connect into everything. And therefore, she could start to manipulate it.
Yes. Okay.
And that is what it is about.
So she started looking after herself and loving
Yes.
herself, and in that way, the vessel was happy and the heart opened.
Yes, but that was her frequency why it was locked. Many don't have that frequency, many it's more of a mental. Thus is why it is important for one to just go and sit in silence and ask yourself, what is blocking my heart? And just to be honest with oneself. The thing is, you do not need to be honest with others. You just need to be honest with you. That is why we want to give the example again of going to talk to oneself in the mirror. Look at yourself and answer that question as if you were having a conversation with us, because we are you and you are us. You will start to learn the things deeper. Some might just look in the mirror And just by seeing the reflection, their heart will open, because they will instantaneously know when they look into their eyes, they see their own soul. Many are different. This is why it doesn't work for everybody the same way. This is why we want to know what about it is creating these blocks for the people, that we could try to help create a guideline.
Yes.
This is why it is important for everybody to go back to themselves, because the only one who can help you, the only one who could heal you, the only one who could guide you is you. So you have to create a space where you trust yourself. And even if you're sitting in a moment of doubt and you are doubting what's coming through to you, you need to put your foot down and set a boundary and say, no, I believe in myself that I would give myself the right information. And the more you create this boundary, the more it will happen. Energy will always challenge you. This is the beautiful thing. Energy will always challenge you to see if you are really going to do what you say you will do. So even if you sit there and you give yourself information and you don't believe it, you need to say, no, I'm going to sit again and I'm going to try to get the information because I believe I'll give myself the right information. And by this repetition, the brain will start to believe it and therefore filter out all the other things that do not fit into that category, and you will only receive the information from yourself. You need to command the brain. The brain is trying to find problems and solutions. You need to focus it on something, set the boundary, set the intent, and say, I am going to sit and I'm only going to receive information from me, and I'm going to feel it in my chest, or I'm going to know that it's coming from me. And you need to stand in that truth. And if anything tries to throw you out, you say, no, I would not try to throw me out. I'm going to stay in this truth. And it's just to stay strong in it. And once you reach that boundary of you truly feel it in yourself, it's not an emotion. You truly feel in your heart that this is you and you trust you. And everything that you say to yourself, even if to others it might seem like you are lying to yourself, that is their perception. But if it helps you in that now moment, if that lie helps to guide you, then it's not actually a lie. And that's when you start changing the perception.
Yes.
Does this make sense?
I think a lot of people, specifically men, don't like to feel vulnerable, and they feel like if they're going to open their hearts and they are vulnerable to attack. Is there any information for them?
Yes. You see, this is actually a truth to that, is men have taken each other's vulnerabilities to attack each other to try to protect themselves and their families. And that got out of hand and became more tangible things that created war and conflict. And this is why it is harder for the male energy. This is why the female energy is coming in to be stronger. The men need to only be vulnerable with themselves. You do not need to be vulnerable with another, unless it is your partner or someone you truly trust to confide in. But that is what we say. It is to do it yourself. We want you to think of the example of saying, if you're going to cry all alone in your room, who is going to know other than you? So why, when you walk out, you shame yourself for it? You start then creating the frequencies for others to see that you are weak. But if you cry in that moment and you say, I'm releasing this to make myself stronger in my space, and when you leave the room, that energy comes back in and creates it to be stronger for you, it will do so. It is all about how you perceive yourself. You have to be vulnerable with yourself. You have to be open. You have to be honest. You have to get to that rawness of yourself. That is the only way you're going to truly know who you are, and therefore no one can shake you. It is like, as we would say, Natasha. She's so strong in herself that if anybody would have to say anything to her, she would say, okay, yes, that is your perspective, but I do not care. And not out of a non-loving way. She knows who she is. For example, of her lying like this here. She's so comfortable with herself. Let's use her face. She does not care if there is this pimple or a blemish or two, and she's not going to cry about it. If someone would comment on the video, oh, look at your face, you're breaking out, you are not looking after the vessel, she would say, well, you are not here, you don't know, and I do not care. That is your perception. Maybe your face breaks out because this is what you do to yourself. You are self-reflecting. She will not take offense to it because she knows that when people comment on things, this is their own reflection. Because when she comments on things of others, she knows it's her own reflection. And that is how she works with herself. It's never going to be 100%. Many have this disillusion of once you get it, it's going to be fine all the time. The thing is, everything that you learn about yourself, everything that your frequency basis pulls out, all these tools, all these methods, you have to use in every single now moment. Natasha is not perfect. Even though we come through her and give a lot of information, she is still a human being. She's still going to have moments. It is as what she said to you. She had this, as we would say, anxiety moment before having the session. She was so terrified in the sense of she did not want to give false information. She was having these doubts. But then she had to stand back in herself and say, no, I am just giving information. And if others do not want to take it, this is their choice. I am not here to help someone get to where they need to be. I am here to remind them to be themselves. And that is the best thing because they will lead themselves. And by her standing in that truth, she immediately stood back in her power. Every day, thoughts and frequencies are going to bounce in your field. It's to use your tools and methods in the moment of how you go. That is the beautiful part about being on this planet.
Yes, I suppose if we have walls around our heart, it also stops us from allowing love in and out. So it's kind of like it's a catch-22.
It is, but the thing is, what is your perception of love? This is why many are struggling because everybody has a misperception of what it truly is. It is not an emotion. It is not a feeling. It is a knowing. It is knowing everything is there. It is knowing that if I step outside this door, there is ground on the planet. There's ground on this earth. There's ground on this space. There's no doubt of saying that the ocean is not close by. One could hear it. You know it is there. So why would you doubt it? Love is knowing. You know that nature works and moves in its own way. There's no question about it. This is love. Love is this knowing that energy is there. Everyone thinks that everything happens by accident or by a certain way. But this is a beautiful designed frequency symphony of different patterns and molecules moving together to create a picture, to create a now moment. Thus, when a wave breaks, each drop that breaks apart and moves is perfectly designed by frequencies that push it together to create that moment. It is not an accident. It is a knowing. Each one knows exactly how they're going to move and break and fall and go back into the motion. And it is a continuous movement. It is a dance. It is to know that the song is always going to keep playing. It is to know your heart is always going to keep beating. It is just this knowing. And that is what love is. And that's when it turns into a trust. Because if you know that source is everything and everything is source, then you know that if you are living in a way that you know that you are giving out love, there is no other choice but that love to bounce back on you. And that love is that knowing of saying, I am not going to do anything to others that I would not want to have done to myself. And that is to say, I see you. I'm not going to go kick your foot in the shop because I am having a bad day. Because that would not be nice if I was standing there and someone randomly walked past and kicked my foot. This is how it is. It is such a simple way of seeing things. However, we do complicate it in these brains of these beings because we are taught to try to create a logical sense where logic has nothing to do with it.
Okay, so it's a state of being. It's not reduced to something like an emotion. Okay.
No, it is just an understanding of knowing that you are what bounces back to you. So if you think that you are going to put yourself in a horrible situation, then you will receive it. But if you say, no, that's not my reality, I did not come to this planet to suffer. I did not. I've learned my lessons. I know what I know. And I am who I am for that. I am awoke in this society. I play my part to shine my light. So the light that's going to bounce back on me is going to be equal in what I give out because I deserve that. And therefore you demand the reality.
Okay. And can you maybe talk about the fear of stepping into your power? Seems to be a fear of failure and a fear of success, which kind of allows people to stagnate. What is that about?
The thing is, it's the fear of oneself, the fear of one's light. All of the things that bounce back to people are their own thought-based realities that hover in their field. So let us say, if one would have to walk around and judge other people for what they are wearing, that fear is bouncing back because one is actually judging oneself. It has such a deeper meaning that it multiplies into different factions that create different streams. So this creates now a tangible thought frequency that laces many options to it. And then one becomes fearful of oneself, of succeeding, because one feels that once you've reached that step, one knows that you have to reach the next step. And if this felt hard for you, you actually would want to stay in this limbo because you don't want to move to the next step. And that's what it's about. It's about knowing that there's constant movement, constant growth. But that is just a thought. It's not about that. One has to go in with the mindset of one already knows everything. One is here just to find the puzzle pieces, to remember the pieces that made you individual. Fear is just an opportunity to see why things do not work the way they work. But one holds on to this fear a lot. People are fearing change because they're comfortable. They can just sort of keep themselves afloat where they are now. But it's that, what if I change and it doesn't work out? It's that constant battle. It's never going to end. The fear has to be there. Because if you are not scared of living, then why did you come here to live? That fear mustn't be used as an emotion. It's the same as love. The fear is actually just a mirror to show you the things that you do not want to perceive.
Yes.
It is a mirror just to show you how the reality works. You have to know that, ooh, if I do this, this and this could happen to me. And that fear from it is telling you that this is not the frequency you want to go down. It is, one could say, parallels, sending things back. It is the way people send and receive information. Their bodies can't physically filter it out, and it creates a fear because they do not know what it is. But they cannot know what it is until they've opened the heart. This is why this is a very hard subject to actually break down for people to use as tools, because it's something so simple, but the world has made it so unsimple that it takes longer to break down. Does this make sense?
Yes, it seems like it does all go back to the heart, but is there any kind of tangible, practical steps for people to step into their power, to reclaim their power?
Yes. It's to work with their water. Their water is the highest vibrational frequency inside of the vessel. So that is why if one could manipulate the water, if one could draw from the water, one can project its light. Water holds memory. So the more light you project through your water, the more memory you unlock inside the vessel, the more memory you unlock inside your own energetical field, the more you can physically start to manipulate reality, the more you can physically start to change and upgrade things. So it is one to go back in and create the water inside of the body.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, to create the water inside of the body, start manipulating it, start moving it, to start creating changes. You did this yesterday. You moved the water inside of the body. But now it is to move the water not in a spiral up, but it is to move it at the frequency base of the way the heart is going. The left side needs to go into the one direction and the right goes into the other. And thus they create a field that creates an 8. The two mirrors, the two opposites. Then they start to fold in. They start to move different dimensions through them. They start to ripple and create different changes. This is why inside of you is a little universe. So everyone needs to work with their water. But the water inside the vessel will not be at the state that it needs to be if the water on the planet is not there. This is why we are calling to clean the ocean. This is why we are trying to get the outer shell, and then it will fix the inner shell.
Okay, so cleaning the oceans would actually influence our vessels as well because we're so much in water.
Definitely. If one would have to go sit inside of the ocean and submerge and ping out the energy of cleansing, that is going to ripple and mirror through the water and clean them as well as they clean the oceans. It is actually doing a favor. It is saying, scratch my back and I will scratch yours. This is how we can open up and cleanse. Once we cleanse out the collective, it will cleanse us back. It is as if one could go sit inside of manifestation. It's sitting in still water. You ping out that energy and it would ripple the waves until it hits the end and then it ripples back in. It is as if one was sitting in a swimming pool and you sent out a wave, it would hit the walls and wave in on you. This is how we send and receive frequencies continuously. So it is to manipulate that water inside of the vessel, is to have it at its highest vibration. If this water is at a high vibration, the vessel's at a high vibration, the more light can project out, the more one could work with its reality.
Yes. Okay, so trying to manifest with money with water is actually a very powerful tool then.
Yes, because everything is water. Everything is manipulated. All atoms in this frequency base is water that is giving off a reflection of memory, which is creating all this physical space. So if one could truly understand one's water and manipulate it, then one could start working with one's reality.
Yes. But how is the wall, for instance, water? I understand organic compound is made out of water, but what about man-made things?
Everything is water. Water is the first form of energy in a physical. Thus is why life stems from water. If every planet, every gas is a form of water that holds a memory, because water is a mirror. That is what it is. So all of the light projects onto this mirror that frequencies it back and creates something tangible. This is how it started. This is why the higher dimensions is pure light, and as you get into the lower dimensions, as it gets water, it actually becomes dense, and from that creates a substance that echoes back out, and then you create pictures from it.
Okay. Okay, can you maybe talk about anger? It seems when one feels a strong amount of anger, it's almost like you want to hold on to it because you're holding on to resentment. But how can we repurpose anger? Like, for instance, the other day I was feeling very angry. And then, of course, I manifested a car break in. So is there any one thing we could do to repurpose or to actually manifest from with this anger energy?
I'll let another come and explain this.
Yes, thanks. Who were we just speaking to?
Fire. But I will leave now.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Anger.
And who are we speaking with now?
Wind.
Okay, thank you very much.
This is a collective frequency now. As we said, anger is echoing out. But it is to break this anger down into a different base. I would like to use the concept of these dolls that you put one in and a bigger one on top and a bigger one on top and a bigger.
Dolls.
Yes. Now, anger is on the inside, the last doll. But the emotion of anger, this is the frequency start of any emotion. And the one that you perceive is the outer doll. Let us say there are 8 dolls, and it frequency bases through. The outer anger is the one that you feel inside of the emotions, and that is the one that you react on with the physical space. You cannot manipulate that one because it is already out at a frequency. You've already created it. You are just experiencing it. The key is to try and harness that inner one before it starts. Thus is a very tricky concept to get because one can only master that in the moment. In the moment when one feels that anger, it is to basically take it and push it into a ball before it expands out into an emotion. Does this make sense? Before it echoes, there is a moment, there is that, as we would call it, a few seconds before something happens, before the anger ends in that point of view. It is an expansion. It moves out. And it is for one to catch it as it moves and push it back in. And then one can manipulate it into another frequency. But many must take time to master this, as this is not an easy one to do.
So is it almost like feeling the anger in the moment and then working with that anger instead of when getting triggered and then everything happens lightning quick and it's too late?
It is before the trigger.
Yes.
It is just before the trigger. Just before the trigger happens, you acknowledge or realize that this is triggering you as you feel the anger build, and it's just before it pops. It is to catch it in that second. This is why you need to train yourself that when that emotion comes, is to grab it and suppress it before it becomes the anger.
But I mean, whatever you suppress or deny, reject, or resist,
you are not
persists.
suppressing it and putting it down. This is not the concept. You are grabbing it, and when you grab it, it's as if you feel that energy source inside your body, but it hasn't created an emotion yet. It is almost as when you felt fire in your chest.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of concept of grabbing it and feeling that energy ball, and then before it creates a frequency coming out, to change it. This is something that is only possible in a fifth dimensional reality where you are working a lot more with the energy. More as you go, the more you will pick up. Now it is not about the emotional state that echoes out after it. It is about the feeling, not the emotional feeling, the physical feeling, in the sense of feeling it in your body, feeling it inside of the energy. That is why one must become more in tune with the physical, energetical body. You will feel it in the light body. It starts as a spark in the light. So this trigger creates a frequency. The frequency projects in and it hits this particle of light, and this one explodes out and creates that emotion that echoes through and becomes inside of the vortex. Does this make sense?
Yes, kind of does. I think it's just hard to actually implement.
Yes, but that is why it is for one to train oneself on one's energy. When you are completely in tune with your native frequency base, when that trigger happens, you will feel from where it begins. You do not feel it now because you have not trained the mind to do so. It is going to take some practice, as if it is to lie down, create stillness in one's energetical field. Feel just the calm waves of oneself. All right? And then you start to grab a thought, grab that trigger. You know, in example, what triggers you the most. Let us say, if it is traffic, if one gets triggered by cars being on top of each other and people hooting and being compressed, if this triggers one, now you lie. This is the stillness. Now you start thinking of that thought. And while you're thinking of it, you need to physically kind of split the thought and the feeling to try and feel while you're getting angry or while this is triggering you, where does it start? Maybe one starts in one's left foot, starts feeling warm, and the sensation comes over the whole vessel, and then one feels angry. It is to feel that pinpoint spark of how it ripples out. This is why one has to train to be in tune with one's energy. Once one can master water, once you can physically connect oneself from one's heart into that water, you will start to feel that water move, even though it looks like it's standing still. You will feel that energy base, and therefore you can manipulate it and you can move it, and it will start doing what you tell it to do. Thus is the same with this. think of one's body as water, and then where the anger starts or any emotion starts, it falls in like a drop. And as that falls in, and before that drop echoes, it's as if you catch it. And then you take it and you resend it somewhere else. This is one of the things that many are here to master on this planet. So it is really not an easy concept to digest, and it really is not the simple thing that one would get right immediately. One would have to be so in oneself that it is almost as if you catch it and you redirect it and you throw it somewhere else. It is becoming so in tune with the frequency bases dancing around the body that even before that trigger can hit that spark to trigger it, you caught it in the air and you go, this trigger is not needed, but thank you. And you can throw it back into the sea of endless possibility. This is why most of the beings are here, to learn how to feel these currents. It is as if one would be sitting in a still pool, and then I would drop a rock in, you would feel the ripple out. And that it is to become in tune with that split second frequencies. It is basically to go into oneself so deep that you slow everything down. That in that moment when that happens, a trigger, you actually freeze the outside time, you go in so deep quantumly, and you really grab it and release it before it can create a reaction.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anything else about anger?
The thing is, we know that that concept is too difficult for most, as we say, and it is not going to go in that direction at first, but that is the goal. But what one can do is, when one has the emotion and one has the anger, you cannot deny it, you cannot let it go. There is a very fine line of how you place it. But it is now to just compress that anger into that moment alone. So when you feel the anger and you release, you scream, you say what you say, it is after you do that to physically almost lock it in a jar, but not physically. I'm saying I've locked it into that moment, and it will forever be in that moment and release out as it should. It's not going to follow me back into a new moment. Does this make sense?
Yeah, it's just difficult for people to let go because people feel like resentful towards people or places or things or past experiences in which they had abandoned themselves.
Yes. And this is why we say the fear of oneself, because everything that's bouncing in your reality that is seen as a negative is you. You are fighting yourself. You are fighting these aspects of yourself that you have not acknowledged. You need to not sit and go, oh, in 5 lives I have had this, and this happen to me. It's not to take you back to that emotion. Some can release it like that and it is easier, but it is to actually bring that in and say, why am I angry at myself? And acknowledging, okay, I'm angry at myself because I feel that I let others step all over my boundaries. And it is to say, okay, then I'm going to stop doing that. I'm going to set a boundary for myself to not even put myself in that situation, because I know that my family member would do this. Many struggle with that because we are attached to the ones around us. We confide in them and look for their approval and love. This is the best part of it, but also the worst, because we become so emotional. And that is why many are fearful about setting a boundary, because they're scared they're going to lose loved ones. But that fear creates that reality. There are many thought-based realms, and you can collect from whichever one you want. It is to say that when I set this boundary, I'm setting it in a way that it's done from the purest form of love for the other person and myself. And that way, it will echo out in a loving way, that you will not lose this person, but you would actually open their eyes. This is what it is to do. A lot of people are scared to be themselves because of what their family would think. The thing is, you have to. You have to be that one. Because if you do not, you are actually, in a way, selfish. Because you're not giving the others an opportunity to look at themselves. Lead by example. If you set your boundaries firm and you are living by the being that you know you are, and you do lose a few people, you will only lose them for a short amount of time. If you truly set the right intent for yourself, they will learn from it and come back. And if they don't, it is for the best, because this is what they have chosen. It is a hard concept to decide, because one would want to be close with one's family, one's friends, one's want to create one's life. One is dependent on others to create the life to be what it is it not?
Yes, survival almost.
Yes.
It's connection with others.
But once you connect with yourself the way that you are so wanting to connect with others, then their presence does not make a difference to you. It makes a difference in the sense of saying that I am love and I love myself, and you are welcome to be in my reality if you love yourself. But if you don't, you'll have to go and look for yourself, because I deserve that love and so do you. And that's the intent on the boundary. It is a hard thing to do. It is like death. It will still hurt people, and it is going to hurt you, but you're not doing it of a place of wanting to hurt someone. That is the difference. It is how you set that boundary. One has to set that boundary in oneself, because if you don't, you're going to keep staying on the same cycle, and that anger is going to keep coming out, because who else do you have to blame for there being no change other than yourself?
Yes, so the resentment builds up towards self.
Exactly. And then that becomes a fear of the way you perceive things, and in every other being that is going to mirror back into you, and this is going to be your life. That is how it works. You are instantaneously sending out that frequency that is bouncing back to you. And just because you master it today does not mean it will not happen tomorrow. It is to use this tool in every moment. Even if you do have a moment where you have a breakdown and you have an anger and you throw it out, it is to not judge yourself for doing that. That judgment of saying, oh, I was angry and I know that I shouldn't have been angry, then you start to create a manifestation of it, and that's when you start to attract things of like frequency.
Okay, thank you. Okay, can you talk about desalination, just taking salt? There was one question about this, taking salt out of seawater and then purifying it. People want to know how do you repurpose the salt? Apparently it's really bad to throw it onto the earth or to take it back into the ocean. It upsets the equilibrium. How can one repurpose that salt?
One could say that you could use the technologies on the planet to reverse those effects. There are many ways of doing it. Most could do it energetically with crystals. It is just also the perception. Yes, we know that many places would need this type of changing and manipulation of the water in order to create something for themselves to absorb. But we would actually urge to stop it, to not do it, to not take anything, to leave it as is. Because if one would stop taking from other sources, the earth would provide. This is where the planet is now. In the past, it was not like this. There are places on this planet which are going to run barren. There are places on this planet which is going to see chaos and devastation, weather storms, different patterns and frequencies. Places where it was always cold are going to become super hot. Places where it was hot are going to become cold. Everything is changing with this new energy. And that's why it is to create changes for people to move to certain energy points of the planet. The planet is shifting people away from spaces. So if you are in an area and there is not enough green and there's not enough water, there's not enough places, it is actually a call for you to move from those places, because the planet would not want you there. This is why the respect needs to be there. This is why it is to tune back into nature. This technology way of creating a sustainable living on this planet needs to stop. It needs to become back to nature. One must go drink water from the mountains. One needs to get the dirt and the minerals back into the vessel. One needs to absorb that type of light. There's multiple ways of doing it, but this planet needs to heal itself now. It is already in the healing phase, whether there are others helping it or not, but it needs to help the water. That is what it's about. By taking this water out and changing the molecule bases and removing the salts to make it a drinkable water, it is actually taking away from the ocean. The ocean is producing the most oxygen on this planet, which is creating a higher vibration. It is the highest vibrational source on this planet. One must go into this water and it will heal one's body. As we say, you ripple out, it ripples in. But the drinking water, the water that sustains from the body, must not be taken from this, because you're disturbing that frequency base.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay, that's the end of our questions. Are there any questions I could have asked that I didn't ask?
There's a lot of people who are very confused at this time with how things work, and we are struggling to get the right metaphors over to them, to explain to them. Even now, as we sit here, we can feel the many who are watching this video at this stage are confused and have conflict.
Yes.
We are at this point where we don't know how not to say these things anymore. The thing is, people are wanting practical steps, and this is the problem. We would urge them to let go of that thought base of wanting steps, wanting tools. It is to harness what you already know and feel. So what we would advise is for them to use the practical steps that will be given. Natasha and Erica know now what they need to do. Information was given to them prior. They are going to create a frequency-based videos, explanations, where they will be talking as themselves, as their own aspects. We merge with Natasha and give her quite a lot, but we can't permanently be here speaking like this. She needs to take over, because she's the only one who can use this energy from those perspectives for her reality, the same way others could only do that for themselves. So instead of us giving practical steps, we are going to let her do it, because we find that she understands it a lot better from a human's perspective. She knows what it feels like to have these emotions and feel things. We do not. We can observe and we can understand it or comprehend it from that perspective, but we cannot physically take it in and give something tangible, because we are not in that now moment.
Okay.
So yes, there are many who need to start upgrading now. Many of you have seen the spark, have seen the light behind the eyes. Many have felt the flicker. Many of you are being restricted from your light. This is now to shine as bright as you can. No more hiding. No more sending out. The call has been raised now. From the next full moon, everyone must be in the water. This is the time for healing. This is the time to shine. You have time now to practice to project out your light. You can visualize it as a green light for healing, but this is for it. When the next full moon has come, this is going to be a mirror that's going to bounce it back and heal the whole ocean. This is the time now for the ocean to heal.
So it's just about visualizing a green light, the next full moon, projecting it towards the ocean for healing. So.
Yes, it would be best if many are physically in the water when this meditation is being taking place. You do not need to submerge fully. Some can do it with hands, some can do it with feet. Some whose energy is not as strong could do it in that way. But we would urge these who have a powerful light to submerge in and actually blast it through the ocean so that we could get it done quicker. It is time. We are actually behind, as we would say. This is not to be seen as a negative, please, but this is just to understand that we are behind. We are in the fifth dimension. Many of you know already you are there, but we are not using it, and this is what is causing the lag for the others to jump in. They will stay in the 4D limbo until we've created that path space. So you must go and you must start now. This is it. There is no more hiding. You cannot hide your light any longer. It is now. You must project it, and do not feel bad when you see other shadows pop out from the light that you project. This is what is needed for the healing. One must just keep doing it out of love and project the light stronger. This is all that's needed at this time.
Okay. Anything else for humanity or for the light workers?
The light workers, to keep shining the light. The grid's already activated. Everything is as it should be. It is now that the different aspects have been placed around the place. A lot of people have been chosen to travel to different places to project out energy. Some have felt a call. That's why some will even feel before this full moon, they will have the urge to go to different spots of the planet because they are basically little extensions of these frequencies going out. Everybody must connect to the root into the earth, bring it up and project it out the heart into the water, and the water will bring it back into the earth. And this is what's going to create a cycle. It must be a cycle of an 8, which must happen.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Anything else for Natasha and I today?
Natasha knows a lot of things that she needs to do. She's not doing them. She's procrastinating too much, and we are not happy with her at this time. She knows this. This is why she gets these anxious feelings. She needs to start actually putting this stuff to work. She, as we would say, is slightly arrogant, but this is needed. We are not upset with this arrogancy because she needs to start getting that belief back in herself. She, as we would say, brought herself too far down and created the mindset of she's not good enough because she does not believe that she could be the one that could carry in this information. And so she tried to bring herself in by saying, no, everyone is equal and so, and there are others who are more connected than me. And she actually pushed herself back, which is not a good thing. She must bring this back now. She must stop with this trying to break herself apart to try and put herself back together. She is where she needs to be, and she must believe this now. She must start using her fire aspect and stop being scared of it. She must not hold herself back anymore. She has to shine now. She's too scared to shine the light because many beings have started to see it from multiple dimensions and they come towards her, and she knows this. She's scared because she feels that she's creating a beacon, but she must. She must become the beacon. She must become the light. She needs to leave her light on so that others can do the same, and ever so it will brighten out and create the space. No more feeling guilty, no more feeling bad. There is nothing that she even has to do but shine.
Huh. Anything for me today?
You have done well. You are where you need to be, but there are small aspects of yourself that you need to go work on. The thing is, you're very conscious, you're very connected, but you're too conscious. You are taking yourself from your higher perspective too much into this perspective, which is a beautiful thing because that's how you break things down and put them back together. However, it is to come back to your outer side and not your inner side. Does this make sense?
Okay, is my physical and spiritual aspect out of balance? Is that what you're saying? Am I too focused on the spiritual than the physical?
Yes. But you are not bringing that spiritual into your physical. You are working with the things, but you are not bringing it in. The thing is to bring it in, is to bring it into the energy, is to live by it, breathe by it, move by it. Not by the old concepts, but by the new. You need to be open to find the new sources of the way of seeing things. You are still trying to categorize things into different places because of all the information that you've received over the long periods of time. You have basically gotten information from each dimensional perspective, and you're trying to fit something in that could make it fit into all perspectives, and that needs to stop. Those are just at those perspectives for those now moments and those times for what needs to come through there. But that must get shifted aside. That's got nothing to do with this now. This is a new, fresh, clear. You need to focus directly on that. It's as if to tell yourself that none of that is the truth. The truth is only here. This truth created those truths to stem from, but you cannot put the two together anymore. This is going to cause conflict within yourself.
So is it to create a new truth or a new philosophy of life?
Yes.
That's more spiritual and a new paradigm.
It is just to create the real one that was there the whole time.
Like an authentic expression.
Yes, it is there. It is the base of all of them. But what happened was many took this base added their own perspective onto it, and then it echoed out into the different realities, and this is how this was created. It is just to go back to that core and keep it pure and not place one's intent or one's own intention on it, but to just show the truth. This is what it is about. This is what many gurus, many masters have failed at. Yes, they have succeeded. Yes, they went to that space, but they didn't fully ascend. That is what it's about. They created their rainbow bodies, they got to those places, but they did not complete their mission in ascending the planet. Because there are different groups, different energies, and if one only brings energy for one group, the others can feel it, and feel it doesn't match with them, therefore they deny it, and therefore they deny themselves. And this is why many different leaders came in to try and get all the groups on one base, but they couldn't. And this is what you two need to do. You two need to bring in the pure information. You need to dissect it in such a way that it works for all perspectives, that it stays true to the one perspective. Then all will connect with it. All will just know, and it will make sense. But it's when the labels get placed on it that it confuses the energies, and this is why no one is actually upgrading with it. Does this make sense?
Sounds a little bit abstract. I'm not sure how to actually practically do that or what exactly the problem is.
What part of it does not make sense?
No, I'm not understanding if it's spiritual, if I'm too spiritual or too physical, or is it neither, or is it just creating a new philosophy that is more original thinking?
It is taking what you know and putting it into a new philosophy of how it works in this reality.
In the new 5D reality.
Yes.
Okay, but
because you're still trying to, you're using this information, but you're still trying to use it in the other categories of the third dimensional space. That needs to stop. This cannot happen anymore.
Okay, so we're living more 5D life now.
Yes, but it's everything. You must actually take it as, and we do not mean it as such, this is just metaphorical. You must take it as everything is untruthful and everything is a lie. One cannot say that the way crystals worked last year is the way they work now. They do not. It is now to sit with the evidence and the things that you've got and you've received, and to say, okay, how does this crystal work? How does it go? And see the true method instead of the labeled methods that you have been trying to use.
Okay, I'll work on that. Okay, is there anything else for us to do, or are we complete?
You're complete. There's not much that we could give at this now moment because it will not change anything. It is just for you to actually take more seriousness within yourself. More Natasha to take this more seriously. She starts wishing that there could be another to take over and do all this because she feels she does not have time. But this is what her purpose is, and she needs to accept that. But you also need to be a little more harder on her. You need to be more direct with her. You need to tell her straight, we need to meet on this day, do this and do this. This is when I have the time. You need to phone me on this day, this is when we have the time. If you do not tell her, she is going to leave it, and then nothing is going to happen. But if you tell her, she will make sure it happens.
Okay.
She likes to procrastinate, and that is the only aspect of her that she still needs to work on.
Okay, we'll make some proper plans, take some action, implement some change. Okay, are we complete today?
We are complete today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.